That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about A House of Dynamite, the 11th film directed by Kathryn Bigelow, which premiered in competition at the 2025 Venice Film Festival. Netflix is releasing it theatrically October 10th, 2025, shortly before it will be available to stream on their platform at the end of the month.
Y'all know Kathryn Bigelow. She won the Academy Award for The Hurt Locker.
The first woman in the United States in that ceremony to win that award, and that also won Best Picture. You're familiar with her previous work as well.
Like?
Point Break.
Oh, we have a live review for Point Break.
For instance, her last film before this was Detroit. Zero Dark 30, I think, is an exceptional film. Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett. The Loveless, she has a pretty good vampire film in the 80s, Near Dark. Of course, she used to be married to Mr. James Cameron.
Great. What is A House of Dynamite about? When a single unattributed missile is launched at the United States, a race begins to determine who is responsible and how to respond. What is your pull quote?
A timely, breathlessly paced anecdote about our current proximity to the doomsday clock, Bigelow's A House of Dynamite loses steam through its repetitive structure of interlocking perspectives, though some standout performances in the ensemble cast assist in instilling a sense of dread and doom.
Mine. Bigelow delivers a heart-pounding, edge-of-your-seat political thriller, even if it leans too heavily on its narrative gimmick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This was very effective, but the narrative gimmick is that this unattributed missile, meaning that we don't know where it originated and we don't know who's responsible, we're told that it will make contact with Chicago in like 18 minutes. So initially I'm like, oh wow, so it's within the first like 15 minutes that we learn about this missile. So I was thinking the missile is going to connect and the next hour of the film is going to be how we retaliate. But that's not what happens. We basically get, it's three main parts that we view it from. And each one runs the length of that like 18 minutes. One is from
the perspective of the White House Situation Room, where I kind of the central character there is Olivia Walker, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who I think gives the best performance in the whole thing. And when you say you were on the edge of your seat, I think it's really only this segment that I also felt that.
Okay.
Until it gets to the end where contact is imminent with a missile, and then we back up to another part of the same scenario from a different perspective, and then we do that once more, so 3 times altogether.
So the first main part is what you described. Then we get a situation from the perspective of a general who's trying to get details on the missile, and then the final main segment is when we see the actual president, played by Idris Elba, trying to figure out the decision he's going to make.
And then you have the Department of Defense in there, played by Jared Harris, and the aforementioned general is Tracy Letts.
But spoiler, the ending is ambiguous. There is no resolution. We don't see the missile hit Chicago. We don't ever learn what the president's decision was. We do see someone who we saw earlier in the film, someone who works for FEMA in D.C.
Kathy, played by Moses Ingram, who you should recognize from the Joshua Oppenheimer film, The End, with Tilda Swinton.
Yes. We do see her at the very end up at Raven Rock, which is like a nuclear bunker in Pennsylvania. So obviously they didn't get her ass from DC to Pennsylvania in 18 minutes. So I think it's safe to assume that everyone scrambling to get into Raven Rock are doing so because something has happened. I kind of like the ambiguous ending.
Yeah, so I originally saw this in Venice, and there was most of the conversations I had about it were that people felt the letdown was, or the finale was a letdown. But I don't think that was the point of the film either. I think this is supposed to be kind of it's supposed to be thrilling, but it's not escapist fun. It's supposed to be kind of forcing us to confront that, this shit could happen at any minute, and nobody's really paying any attention to that fact. And then how do we really respond? These people that are well trained to do so, how do we really respond when that scenario arises?
Well, didn't Kathryn Bigelow talk about when she was a kid?
Yeah, I was reading her press notes a couple months ago. But basically, you know, when she grew up, you have to remember this is a woman in her 70s that was directing this as well. That you know, it's quite impressive for many different reasons. But you know, she was talking about how she used to be trained as a child, you know, to how to get to the bomb shelter, like.
Right.
That was on the minds of many Americans at that point in time, and that danger hasn't changed. Like, we're closer to the doomsday clock more than we ever have been before, and everybody's just kind of sticking their heads in the sand, like nothing's ever gonna happen, or they don't have to be bothered with it.
I definitely felt the tension of imminent catastrophic danger.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I could have handled. I like how it ended because I don't know that I could have handled seeing Chicago be decimated or the president deciding to retaliate and launch nuclear missiles to...
You mean be handled in the kind of tone that this film is presented in?
I think that it was, like, it took me to where I needed to go, and I think had we seen the resolution, it might have been overkill.
Sure.
I think I'm trying to say I was satisfied with the ambiguous ending.
Yeah, we don't need the destruction and mayhem that you'd see in something like Geostorm. You know, it doesn't have the same emotional pull as having, if you were forced to witness that here.
What did I like? I think it's well constructed. I think managing this, you know, pretty large ensemble cast, even though they're not always together, I think the editing's impressive. The subject matter is obviously intriguing and provocative. This might be like a backhanded compliment, but this kind of felt like one of those like early 2000s, like prime time series, like a 24, like one of those fast-paced,
propulsive
series. That's the vibe I get from this.
The screenplay by Noah Oppenheim, who wrote Jackie and also I think all of the Divergent films or some such things. It seems like a film and the script feel really proud of all the designations of the people that it's outlining for us, but it kind of stops there because I don't feel like we get a lot of characterization. I feel like the people we do get it's from what the actor is supplying.
Sure.
Because I think some of it feels a little bit corny. For instance, the deputy national security advisor played by the kid from Hillbilly Elegy, Gabriel Basso. I thought all of that felt a little bit corny, and I think you took umbrage with Tracy Letts, the general.
Of all the characters, I felt like he felt the most scripty.
Well, he's playing a very stern person. I think Tracy Letts is a fantastic writer, but they're given these tics. Yeah, like Tracy Letts, for instance, is. I don't know how many times we have to hear him say, "Did you see that ball game last night?" And it's compounded because we come back to those moments all the time. And to me, it kind of deflates it a little bit.
Well, what I think is corny is every character, we get one little personal thing about them.
Yeah.
Right? Because
a memento.
The main lady in the beginning, what's her name? Rebecca Ferguson. She, is married and we see her kid is not doing well, needs to go to a doctor's appointment. Then her, main sidekick, who's that actor?
Played by Malachi Beasley.
He is, supposed to propose to his girlfriend tonight. Then the guy from Hillbilly Elegy, we see him riding to work with his, I'm assuming, wife, and she's very pregnant. Then the Secretary of Defense, portrayed by...
Jared Harris.
His daughter lives in Chicago. And then we go a step further to explain that his wife recently died and the grieving process hasn't really begun. So the daughter's asking for distance from her dad.
They seem like they have a strange relationship.
We need to get back to it because I felt like that plot point and what he ends up doing felt very crazy.
Right.
Then the president, portrayed by Idris Elba, in the first two segments, because it's kind of like a triptych, like the middle portion. The first two, we hear him like he's on the conference video call, but there's no video. It's just his voice. And then we realize it's because he's calling from the car en route to safety. But we see that his wife, the first lady, is in Africa on safari. I think she's trying to save the elephants. It's just all these little details that I don't know that I need all that. I feel like there's enough tension. And because we're not getting a lot of characterization, I feel like I don't need all that then. Just tell me this is the president, Secretary of Defense, and let's just go from there, and how they're arriving at the decisions and the assumptions they're making.
Because a scene that irritates me about the Rebecca Ferguson character is there's a new girl at work, that Willa Fitzgerald from Strange Darling.
Oh, that was her?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's like a little commissary right before they go into the situation room because they have to lock up their phones, and the new girl is the new young lady she's asking for an egg white omelet, and Rebecca Ferguson goes, "You only get the egg sandwich or this. That everything else holds up the line." It's like, ma'am, you tell them.
Well, she goes, "How long have you been working here?" And the woman says, "Oh, like a week. How did you know?" "Because you only ordered these two things. Otherwise, you're holding up the line."
But it's like, you tell them to take that off the menu then. If it is available and I want it, I'm getting it.
First of all, bitch, I'm going to get what I want to eat. Okay?
Exactly.
If it's not available, then they should just say, anyway.
Mind your business. I'm gluten-free or whatever the hell you want.
Okay, speaking of her, and I'm sure I'm going to get comments, and I don't know how I'm not making any statement except that I always find it kind of odd when non-American actors play high-ranking politicians.
Yeah,
because Idris Elba does not come across as like a black American man.
Because
there's a scene towards the end, because he has to be followed by this military person who has like the nuclear strategic plan.
Yes.
I don't. I've never seen this.
Nuclear decisions.
Yeah, but he has this person following him wherever he goes.
Chapter 7.
And this guy is integral in this story because because I didn't mention, Idris Elba's new to office. So he's kind of green and is really relying on his advisors. But at the point where Idris Elba has to make a decision, he has to give his code, and his companion is saying, well, you need to pull out your social security card, whatever they need.
Your little black book.
But Idris doesn't have a wallet. He just carries cash around his cards with a rubber band. And he goes, oh, like, I know it's weird, but it reminds me of college. And my first thought was like, Oxford? Like, because you damn sure didn't go to Howard. Like, I found that weird. And then Rebecca Ferguson doesn't seem American.
Yeah, she's Swedish.
The Secretary of Defense doesn't seem American.
Jared Harris, son of Richard Harris, whose father wrote MacArthur Park.
And I don't know if that's not fair to think, but it does always seem odd to me.
It's interesting. I think, it's also this film's coming out in a year where Idris Elba also played the British Prime Minister.
I mean, that
in
too.
Heads of State, so that might be in your mind if you saw that film. But I think that is a valid point of interest.
I have a couple of notes. So in the beginning, when things start to go left, and once it's clear that like this missile is going to hit Chicago, and then they do try to intercept it. Anthony Ramos plays a military person in Alaska who works at like the depot that would send the interceptors.
Fort Greely.
And they're unsuccessful. They send 2 and both are negative for impact. And then it's explained that we only have a certain amount. We don't want to waste them now because if more missiles come, we're not going to have anything to
potentially help
use against them. So, we're just kind of shit out of luck. But as everything starts to go left, people in the situation room start leaving, like going home. So it's just Rebecca Ferguson and her counterpart,
Malachi Beasley, yeah,
who are there. And she tells him, go get my phone and get yours too. Because they're supposed to lock their phones up before they go. And I thought it was funny because there's a very large emphasis on time, right? We're constantly looking at the ticker, like how many minutes are left, because literally there are only minutes left. And I thought it was funny that when we see his character go to get his phone, he is taking his sweet, precious time. He is scrolling through photos of his like soon-to-be fiance to the point where Rebecca Ferguson looks at his chair like, that fool left me. But then he walks in like, no, I'm here for you.
He was getting an egg white omelet. But
it's just like, that's another thing that I felt was kind of corny.
Yeah, I think they're just a few too many of those. And I think on a rewatch, after having not seen it that many weeks ago, I think those appear to be a little more glaring. But I think the scenario and how it's presented has, the tendency to feel overwhelming. Like you are in it.
Yeah. So I thought a strange scene was the president needs advice, and we have the deputy national security advisor trying to give some, but he's saying, like, if we think it's North Korea, I really am not the expert. There's this woman who is the expert. Let's try to find her.
Greta, played by Greta Lee. Yeah.
We get her ass on the phone, and where is she? At a Civil War reenactment. I thought that was so strange.
She's at Gettysburg. I thought that was trying to make a statement about past and present.
I did too, but I thought that was corny.
Real world conflicts. It's like, why are you at Gettysburg?
But she gets on the phone, and it's old boy saying, like, yeah, we need your help, some advice on North Korea. The president's on the line. And this heifer says, well, it's my day off. And he's like, really, bitch? The president is on the line, and he needs your advice. So she kind of begrudgingly is like, well, I'm not in my office, but just off the top of my head. And then she just rambles off like graduate level info. I thought that scene was kind of corny.
I agree.
The first time we meet Idris Elba, he is in the Oval Office, and he has his next obligation is to go to a women's basketball game.
I think that scenario was supposed to kind of mimic where George W. was
when he found out about 9/11. Yeah, I did too. But when we first see him, he's a welcome sight. I felt like he was a little stiff. I think he's supposed to be because he's new to the job.
Kind of uncomfortable.
And then he makes his way to the basketball game. I did think that was a cute scene.
Well, there's this little girl that sinks this ball.
Yeah, and then he shoots the basketball. I did enjoy all that. And then we get a little bit of a connection between he and, I'm assuming, his main Secret Service officer. But then while he's playing, that's when they get the news about the nuclear warhead. And then they have to rush him off. I think I probably felt the tension more than you did.
No, because I just saw it. I definitely did the first time, and I think the first act works quite well. I just think when we back up and kind of retread the same material, it's not unlike this film called Vantage Point that stars Sigourney Weaver, suffers a similar fate in my mind, because you back up and go.
Well, we didn't even talk about that. Probably my biggest critique is it does feel repetitive, because inevitably there's overlap, because they tell the same story like 4 times during the same period. So like you said, we do hear, like we know the beats.
Well, and then my mind's going like, oh, we got at least 20 minutes left from this line of questioning, because he just talked about the ball game. It's okay.
So I would imagine upon a rewatch, it's even more, perhaps tedious.
I'd say, in Bigelow's own filmography, it's somewhere between something like K-19, The Widowmaker, and Zero Dark 30, with like that level of real-world seriousness with kind of popcorn thrills.
But we have to talk about the defense secretary, because he's very preoccupied during the briefing, because his daughter is in Chicago.
Did you say Chicago?
Yeah, and we hear that like 3 times.
It's in the middle bucket or whatever.
But he has an interesting relationship with his daughter.
Played by Caitlin Dever.
And then when we finally see him talking to her, she's telling him, my therapist says that we should probably not interact for now until I can grieve my mother properly. And then he hears there's a man in her house, and she's like, yeah, I'm seeing someone. And then you can see that he's resigned himself to the fact that there's no point telling her, because this shit's gonna land in like 5 minutes. She can't get out. So he basically just says like, oh, that's good. I'm glad that you have someone you like who can walk you to work. I thought that felt a little like it's trying real hard to tug at your heartstrings.
Jared Harris, I think, and again, loved his father. His brother's a decent director as well. I think gives off this, he very easily veers into creep territory.
Yeah.
And the way his daughter responded to him immediately on the phone was giving me this, like, my dad did something bad to me, and I want nothing to do with him.
Yeah. But this man, when Secret Service come to take him, I'm assuming, to Raven Rock, they're walking him towards the helicopter, and he walks past the door, and this man jumps off a cliff, like commits suicide. That also felt like, whoa.
Not without my daughter. That's what that was.
My final note is I think the best line in the film, and we hear it twice, is with 2 minutes left before impact. Everyone is pressuring the president, like, we need a decision. Like, you need to tell it, you have to make a call. And this man says, we're going to need a minute. And I thought that was hilarious because we see the clock, there's only like 2 minutes left.
Well, I guess you do still have one.
But I guess you do still have a minute. But then when it's his portion at the end, we see, I also think what doesn't quite work for me is because of all the overlapping and the constant reference to this very short amount of time, sometimes it felt like people are wasting time. Because it's like, as far as I can tell, you have like 4 minutes. And y'all are just like...
Although Jared Harris is like, Chicago is going to be obliterated in 15 minutes, and his poor secretary, he's like, whatever her name is, Brenda, I need a helicopter to get to Chicago.
If I were her, I would have been like, okay.
I'll get right on
it because it's not going to happen. But yeah, I did think this was very effective. It's going to stream on Netflix. I would definitely say it's worth watching on Netflix.
I agree. I think that it feels like it feels very similar to On the Beach, a classic film with Gregory Peck and Ava Gardner, where all these people are on a boat outside Australia, and I believe it's a nuclear event has happened, and they're waiting for the fallout to hit them. So all these people know they're going to die on this boat, and also, of course, was speaking to fears of the time. But also, if you've never seen it, I think this film is terrifying. It is after a nuclear attack has happened, and it's basically this smaller English town, and kind of how they've managed to figure out some way to survive in the aftermath. It's called Threads from the early 80s, if you've never seen that. This was reminding me of Threads throughout, like, oh, that's what we're going to look like.
What would you give A House of Dynamite?
2.5.
Oh, wow.
It's a fresh 2.5, but it's 2.5.
Oh, I thought it was quite good. I would give it 3.5 out of 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.